Now, the Sapphire 1 toolbar exists of 8 modes, being accounts mode, inventory mode, job projects, assets, payroll, HR, management, utilities and workbook. This is an introduction into the accounts mode and what is contained in the accounts mode. We have 3 distinct menus within the accounts mode, one being receivables, the second being payables, and the third being general ledger. If we look at the receivables drop-down, we're presented with, and this is always consistent across the Sapphire 1 application on the desktop, we're presented with data entry, inquiry, processing and reports. Under the data entry for accounts mode, we're presented with the ability to do a cash receipt, client invoice, credit memo, client journal, client receipt and client refund. So if we go into a client receipt, all we have to do is double click and it will drop us into a client receipt. Now, I won't do a presentation of that. We do specific movies on client receipts in each one of the data entry screens. Same as if we go in now to a transaction inquiry, we're presented with all the transactions that are applicable to the current receivables. We have allocations, client inquiry, so we can drop in here and go and look at all the clients. And then we've got a client class inquiry. We have our post-transactions, deposits and cashier reconciliation. Under receivables, we've also have our reports, details, balances, transaction statements and dashboards. We can close that simply down by clicking on the down arrow beside receivables, and we can now go to payables. Payables is a mirror image of what we just saw with receivables. We have our cash payment, vendor invoice, credit memo, client journal, vendor payment and vendor refund. If I go to a vendor invoice now, we're presented with a vendor invoice, and as I said earlier, we won't be doing demonstrations on the data entry. This is just an introduction into the accounts mode. And then we have our inquiry screens. We have our transactions, allocations, vendors. Once again, exactly the same as we saw earlier with the client inquiry, and then vendor class, the ability to post vendor transactions, payments, and then we have our details, balances, transaction statements and dashboards. And then we come out to our last menu item, which is general ledger. Now, general ledger is not dissimilar to receivables and payables in the sense that we have data entry, inquiry, processing, reporting. The difference being the data entry, we're limited to just doing a general ledger journal. So it's a lot more limited menu list in the general ledger. And then we have our transactions general ledger inquiry, which will show us our general ledger accounts, which is covered under a separate movie for general ledger. FX general ledger classes, and then the ability to post those transactions, bank reconciliations. We can select our main bank account and select the currency, and we can of course go in and do our bank reconciliations, direct bank entry, standing financials, export financials, FX standard financials, chart of accounts, FX chart of accounts, details, FX details, bank reconciliation report, bank audit report, show reports and dashboards. So once again, these are all functions, and we'll go into separate movies on each one of these functions, all covered in the accounts mode within Sapphire 1. So we can go in here and select the a date range and go and look at that particular dashboard. Now, that's the introduction to accounts mode. So as I said, receivables, payable, general ledger. Thank you for taking the time to watch the Sapphire 1 accounts mode introduction.